2021. This meeting is being done virtually due to COVID issues, and so all votes will be done by roll call. Otherwise, you can go ahead and bring the meeting to order.
All right, it's 7:08. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Can you please go ahead and do the roll call, Jessica?
Sure. Commissioner Alves?
Here.
Commissioner Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Pearson? Absent. Commissioner A. Saxena?
Here.
Commissioner S. Saxena?
Here.
Chair Chapin?
I'm here. Okay, now I just closed my the orders of the day. But does anybody have any requests to change the orders of the day? I think that would mean if you want to do things in a different order than what's on the agenda or anything like that. Any requests to change that? All right, I'll assume no. Oral communications, I do see that there is an attendee. Do you know, has anyone mentioned, Jessica, that they would like to speak up? Are you aware of that?
Not to me, no.
Okay, all right, then we'll move on. Oh, wait, regarding oral communications, Philippa brought up an issue, a new issue. Would this be the appropriate time for her to bring that up, or can she bring it up under, kind of the committee and commission reports at the end? When's the best time for her to bring up a new issue that might be agendized in the future?
That would be either under committee or commission reports or under future agenda items.
Okay, all right, let's
Fine.
hold off that until, I didn't even notice the future agenda items. Okay, do we have any written communications, Jessica?
No.
Okay, great. Approving the minutes from the last meeting. Does anybody request any changes or see anything wrong with the minutes?
No.
No.
Me. Could somebody go ahead and
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 11th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I second.
Okay, thank you very much. The minutes are approved. Now we're moving on to unfinished business, Bruce Avenue. I assume you have some things to tell us on that one, Jessica.
Yes, so I have a brief update. So as you know, we sent out a neighborhood vote for the temporary speed bump on Bruce Avenue. So I sent that out at the beginning of February, received about 80% responses. Of those that didn't respond, I sent a second notice. And of those who didn't respond to the second notice, I went and knocked on the door. So in total, out of the 24 residences on that part of street, I received 21 responses. Of those, 17 were in support, which was less than the amount required to install the temporary speed bumps. So a letter was sent out to the residents this week, informing them of that they didn't go through, and that if they wanted to do some other type of traffic calming via the neighborhood traffic calming process, that it would have to be another 2 years before someone petitioned again through that venue. Otherwise, we are still on track to get a traffic engineer and civil engineer to design improvements to that street, as far as the bulb outs go and the piece of sidewalk and just general repair and maintenance of that street. And then after we get a design, it'll be scheduled probably several years out for construction. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
How close, what was how many people were needed to say they wanted speed bumps? It sounds like we had 17 out of 24.
Right, it needed to be 67%. I think, yeah.
Just doing that in my head, I would think that that would be 67%.
Mm-hmm.
17.
Oh, excuse me. It was not 17 people responded in total. Forgive me.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will not do this meeting from my house again because I do not have everything in front of me. I can give you the exact numbers in a follow-up email, but suffice to say it was not the 67% that was necessary.
In the primary, but it was way over 67% of the people that bothered to respond. But it just the people that didn't respond at all were the reason why we didn't get to that threshold. Is that accurate?
So had the 3 non-responders responded in the affirmative, then it would have surpassed the 67% that they needed, but they would have needed all 3 of those votes to be affirmative.
So it sounds like probably more parents who have kids who use, that street to go to school were very vocal about needing speed bumps, but the residents were not overwhelmingly in favor of that. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I would say of those who responded and provided comments in addition to the response, there was a lot of objection of being placed in the vicinity of their a property or 2 down from their personal residence. I would say from those comments that I received, a lot of longtime residents were not in favor and they did not perceive a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I mean, we did what we could do.
Yes.
And it will be 2 years before they can bring that up again.
For speed bumps specifically, yes.
And that's because we adopted some rules on these kind of improvements, just so we would have a formal process. And I assume that's what's in those rules. Is that right, Jessica?
Correct. And it's because not only did we have to do this vote, there was also a traffic study that was done. There was a lot of time put into it, and it's to prevent having to go over the same segment of street multiple years in a row.
Mm.
Those people may be sorry for their vote, actually, if they start putting housing in on Dave's Avenue in the future. But they can, deal with it then, I guess.
Okay. Now, regarding the bulb outs and those sort of things, what kind of time frame for starting the design, and will we be able to be involved in the early part of the design just to take a look at it?
Absolutely, you will be involved. It's going to be budgeted with the fiscal year. So the earliest it would start is July and probably more like the fall.
Okay. And it would just line up completely with the other street improvements we're doing anyways?
Correct. So it's
Okay.
it's on the 5-year projection to do the work.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is there anything else then that we should discuss here?
So the chat box says that a member of public has their hand raised. Do we need
Oh,
to
okay.
address it?
Oh, yes. If they specifically want to talk about this issue, we definitely need to hear them right
Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't know how to let them in, but I think our tech would.
now. I think Jessica, do you need to do that, or is there somebody else?
Dave, if you could let the resident with their hand raised speak, that'd be great.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Louise Kirkbride at 17705 Bruce Avenue. And I voted against the issue, largely because I didn't see a need. We've been here 30 some years. But I do want to ask you, you mentioned having adopted formal rules for how this solicitation gets done. And yet it seemed that a letter went out with a date certain as to when responses had to be in by. And then that date was extended kind of indefinitely. And then we find out that after that, there was a house-to-house solicitation. Is that standard procedure?
I don't remember the specific rules. I do know that we started this project before we had a policy in place, and we decided this is what motivated us to put a policy in place. But what the standard procedure, there's not a standard procedure yet, but how this fits in with the exact rules, maybe Jessica knows off the top of her head, or she might not have that in front of her because she's at home. Do you have any comment, Jessica?
Oh, I can absolutely answer that question. So a date was set on the first letter. The second letter was sent prior to that end date. And then the door-to-door for the 3 residents that didn't respond were done on the due date of the response. So all of those efforts were completed prior to the due date. And then after the due date, I did wait about a week or so to see if we received any more mail. Just due to COVID, the city hall doesn't get their mail delivered every day. And so I wanted to make sure that no one had sent it and had been uncounted prior to sending out the final letter to the residents.
And had they?
I'm sorry?
Were there any that came in after the original date?
No.
So the original date, to my recollection, was the 16th.
I believe that's correct.
And you may remember, we've been calling pretty much daily for the past week or so to find out what happened and have not heard back.
A letter was mailed out to all residents on Monday.
Yeah, but the courtesy of a callback would have been nice.
I'm sorry, I can't speak to exactly if you were called back specifically, but I have talked to multiple residents about this.
Okay, we weren't. I mean, multiple calls. And, you know, I'm doing business from home too, so everybody is dealing with the same issue. Okay, I think if there's a rule, I mean, I serve on several boards. If there is a rule, then that rule needs to be followed. And the fact that, you know, we just kind of extended the date indefinitely, just doesn't seem to me to be good governance.
I didn't hear that the date was extended.
Yes, the date was extended,
Mhm.
as per conversation with you, Jessica.
And it also seems that getting everyone's feedback is very important.
Well, there was plenty of time.
I'm not sure what you're complaining or bringing up.
Governance issues, governance.
You feel that the committee did not respond to you or should not have gone door to door?
I feel that the way this was managed was very squishy.
I'm still confused about your stand.
If a letter comes out that says, please respond by the 16th, it seems to me that that's, and plenty of time was given, it seems to me that the date is the 16th.
And you felt that it should not have been extended?
Who is deciding that?
So you're saying, is there a policy that speaks to this?
Yes, I think if it was decided that it had to be extended, then notify everybody.
I see.
I think in this situation where we're living in with COVID restraints, there are people who are, you know, maybe not home for extended periods of time for reasons. So I don't think it's unreasonable that an attempt was made to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to voice their opinion. And I understand what you're saying, but I think having that attempt was important so everyone can be heard. And I guess you were against it and it's not going to happen. So your point was just there should have been a little bit more transparency or more communication.
Transparency, and if we set rules, adhere to the rules.
Well,
and there apparently weren't any responses that came in after the 16th. That's what Jessica just said. So, you know, it's not good governance. And if you have a date, adhere to the date or officially change the date.
I think that what you're asking the commission to do is to be more specific in their rulemaking or adherence to rules that exist. Is that correct?
I'm asking for transparency and predictability.
I don't see that there wasn't any transparency. I just think that because we wanted to make sure that everyone was given an opportunity to respond, given the extraordinary circumstances that we are living in right now, I don't see that there was a problem.
I know you don't.
There's a lot of businesses and there's a lot of places that are, I guess, not going exactly by the book or exactly by normal rules during this time frame. So I just, I would ask you to try to understand what happened.
I understand where we are. I'm asking that it not happen again this way.
Maybe we should revisit the rules and the procedural processes that we use for such a vote or such an information provisions for neighbors or neighborhoods that are involved in something like this. Perhaps we should revisit that.
Was there?
I don't think it's the rules. And to be honest, I think the spirit of our intention or the spirit of the rules and the spirit of what happened, it was well intentioned. I doubt we're going to be doing this again during another global pandemic.
And can I get just Louise, you're concerned about an extension. Was there an extension above and beyond just waiting to see if any additional mail came in?
I don't know. We called on the 16th. We called on the 16th to find out what the result was. And we were told we're extending it a couple of days. Then we called in later, a week later or so, to find out what had happened. And we were told it was still being extended. It smacks of we're going to extend it until we get the answer we want.
Yeah, I don't feel that that's what was going on. We're trying to find out
I know
what
you
the
don't.
residents want. We want to find out what the residents want.
If it was all done before the 16th, I mean, this is a short street. We're not talking about Mulholland Drive here. This is a short street. If it was felt that the mail system had collapsed to the point where people couldn't get the mail in, or it had collapsed to the point where City Hall can't reliably get mail within a week or two, then the solicitation should have been done before the 16th, but it sounds like it was. So why was it extended?
There's a lot of things that are happening right now during this pandemic that are getting extended. I take issue with what you said about we're trying to extend it to get the answer we wanted. All we wanted to do was hear from every resident that potentially would have been impacted.
And there are 28 of them?
I think it was 24.
Okay, well, that doesn't take long and could have been done before the 16th.
Well, I beg to differ. There are probably people who weren't home or not getting their mail, and we wanted to hear from them.
Okay, so what you're saying is, I hear your message loud and clear that because of what's going on in the outside world, we don't need rules. We don't need to adhere to the rules we set for ourselves.
I would ask that you try to understand that the intention and spirit of those rules might have needed to be adjusted because of what is going on.
Okay, so for you, there's no takeaway from this.
Well, there's certainly a takeaway that you should have been communicated with better than you were, and I'm sure Jessica will look into that.
She won't have to look far.
So I do feel bad that you weren't responded to promptly.
Can Jessica look into that and check on the rules and the regulations that might relate to this? So Louise feels that there's are that we're not just trying to brush her off, because we're certainly not trying to do anything like that.
Well, we certainly can say post-COVID, which hopefully is very soon, we'll stick firmly to the deadline, including the USPS aspect, which, as Jessica mentioned, was not happening daily because of the way the city hall was operating.
Okay.
I think we should thank Louise for bringing this to our attention, and that we should just check to be sure what the policies are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All righty.
All right. Thank you for your time and for bringing this to our attention, Louise.
All right.
All right. In that case, did we have any more discussion on this particular topic?
So
don't think
now
we-
what are the next steps now? Do we need to send written communication to each and every resident of the street?
Regarding the speed bumps? Is
Yeah.
that what you're asking? Yes. Are there any next steps, Jessica, with respect to the speed bumps?
Yes, all the residents were sent a letter with the results of the no speed bump decision on Monday. So they should have it by
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we just don't want to be in the situation again where they feel that we didn't hear them, or there is no transparency and they don't know how many people voted or didn't vote. Because I remember them first meeting I observed, and people were really passionate, and it was very intense, which went for probably 80-90 minutes, the whole discussion. And it's just kind of unfortunate that people are either not able to vote, they're not home, or things just didn't work out the way a part of the street hoped for. But if somebody is feeling that rules are not being followed, or some other people are feeling that we are not being transparent, when we have nothing at stake here, we are just trying to do the best we can for people of our own cities. So just want to be a little more careful about it.
I'm curious though, Jessica, is it appropriate to, I guess you sent a letter. I wondered if maybe you needed to wait till there was a meeting to release the results of that, but I guess you went ahead and did it as soon as everything was tabulated. So
I did in the interest of I'm sorry, in the interest of I did get contacts from several residences about the results, and it seemed prudent just to send out a result so everyone was on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Is it possible, can we put it on our website also, like, because it has been such a again intense issue and people are following up? Is there a procedure we can just put it on the website, so whenever people go there they can see this is the decision, even if they miss their mail or something?
I don't see why not.
I think everybody that's impacted or that received the initial letter already knows, though. I don't know how many people there would be, maybe the people around the corner, but
There's going to be people who are on other streets, or parents who are at the school who were very vocal, who said that there is a traffic calming issue. So they may be surprised when we tell them, or if they find out that, well, we did this survey and the answer was no, so there's not going to be speed bumps, but we followed the rules that we put in place. Even if the timing wasn't perfect, thanks to COVID, we did follow them.
Right.
Okay, so that seems reasonable to you to put something on the website, Jessica?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess we should go ahead and move on. Let me call up the agenda here. Next item on the agenda is Highway 9 Safety Improvement Gap Closure. Do you want to start with your staff report on that, Jessica?
Sure, I'll keep it brief. So your agenda packet, I included the most current plans for the Highway 9 safety improvement gap closure, the walkway on Highway 9. This is the plans that are most currently and expected to be approved by Caltrans in the next week or so. In the staff report, I have for your consideration a potential funding source, which is Transportation Development Act Article 3 funds. This is funds that the city gets by formula basis. We've banked them the past 4 years, and it's money that is use it or lose it, and we are at the use it or lose it stage. It's not a ton of money. It's about $27,000, but it does require an approval from our bicycle committee, or in our case, our Better Streets Commission, and from the city council to apply for the funds. Staff is proposing in this year's budget that we fund the entire project. And so hopefully we can start construction on this next spring if approved by council during the budget discussions in the next few months. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So is the entire budget, I saw a $500,000 number in there, I think. Is that
Yes.
what this costs?
It is 569 plus 27. So it's an almost $600,000 project.
And I want to apologize. I'm out of state right now, so I wasn't able to go over there and study how that's a gap closure. Can you describe that? How that's a gap? What gap that's closing?
Sure. So there is a walkway on one side of the road, and it's been built in phases, I believe 4 phases. And in the last phase, the whole area in Monte Sereno was supposed to be constructed. Due to budget issues, it wasn't. So it stops at the crosswalk at Greenwood Road, and then doesn't pick up again until, I believe, Viewfield or so. So there's a good gap of where it's just paved shoulder, but there is not the raised asphalt walkway.
And you're talking exclusively on the north side of Highway 9, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'm still getting used to government, I guess. That just seems like an awful lot of money to put a sidewalk in on a short distance. What are the main drivers of the cost?
There's quite a bit of grading. So there's some retaining wall that needs to be built there. And that's really the main driver there is grading. And that's why it wasn't constructed in the first place.
What is it going to do to the width of the shoulder, if anything?
It should be the same distance. So basically the walkway would basically grade back the properties in the hillside there. And so the shoulder and the roadway width and all that would be the same.
Okay, so no negative impact to cyclists that travel through there. That's really what I was getting at.
No.
The other question I had was, so there was we've talked before about the plan that was a continuation of the various phases of the Highway 9 improvement plan that I think was spearheaded by Saratoga. Is this the extent of that final phase? Is that what we're talking about?
In Monte Sereno, yes. There might have been other pieces in other jurisdictions, but I can't really speak to that.
Okay, so but that's really the extent of the final phase, and there will be a sidewalk all the way through Monte Sereno on Highway 9 after this is complete.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Sorry for dominating this discussion. Does anybody else have any questions?
The only thing I would ask about is, in the interest of transparency and not and letting people know what's going on, I noted that the present method for giving information to the community is a posting at City Hall. Is that exactly how this information about this piece of work being introduced to the citizens only by the posting of the work at City Hall? If it is, I believe that's insufficient. I think it's important for us to do whatever we can to make the community feel that they are a part of all decision-making as much as they are able or are willing to do. And so notices of work to be begun or anticipated or whatever, we need to somehow get that to the people in a better way than just posting it at City Hall.
Mhm. Well, I'm sure it's noticed to the people that are live in the immediate area, but can you comment on that, Jessica?
Sure. So for roadway type projects such as this one, or curb and gutter, sidewalk, everyone gets mailed. So for this particular project, since it had already been proposed once, residents who were there for that last project should know all about it. Every resident will be contacted again about effects to their private property and the roadway and issues during construction. In general, for projects, it just kind of depends on what kind of project it is as to how people are noticed. But with construction projects, everyone has to be noticed prior to construction taking place. You may be thinking of noticing for planning projects, which often do just need to be posted at City Hall and on the site. But any kind of construction project that affects a residential property, every residential property is noticed.
Could it be included in the newsletter, the Monte Sereno newsletter, so that it's distributed to everyone? And if they didn't read it in the Monte Sereno newsletter, at least an announcement that this is going to happen. I realize that people who live within 300 feet or something like that and people who were directly impacted would be notified, but it seems to me that we need to work very hard to be sure that everything we do is transparent and people don't think that we're trying to pull shenanigan or something by doing it and not telling. I think that I really feel that transparency is our responsibility to our citizens in Monte Sereno, no matter where they live. Because that's one of the things that was criticized in the past.
Well, I certainly would agree that transparency is important. Anybody else have any comments? Do people feel that would be a good way to do it? And I don't even know if I don't know what the rules are regarding that publication, whether it's appropriate or not, but it seems like a reasonable idea to me.
It is a newsletter truly for the citizens, and everybody gets one.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Jessica?
Just for clarification, by newsletter, do you mean like the weekly email that goes out or the physical paper newsletter that goes out annually?
Well, it's the one, let's see, I don't have it on my desk, but we received a newsletter recently that was from Monte Sereno, and it had a bunch of historic stuff and, comments about the citizen of the year or something like that. And is there something that goes out every month or every 3 months or something like that comes out from the city?
So to my knowledge, oh, go ahead.
I feel like I've gotten a couple of those newsletters within the past few months. I'm surprised to hear they're only annual.
How often does Monte Sereno print something like that?
To my knowledge, I think what you're referring to with all that historical references and the announcement about the picnic was the Peaceful Mountain Monitor. And to my knowledge, that comes out on an annual basis. If you've received something else recently, please let me know, because I'm not aware of any other publication that we've sent out to all the residents. So it is definitely we can put out like like this Highway 9 project, large capital projects, we can mention those in that newsletter. I don't know how timely they would always be though.
I'm wondering if that's something we could recommend to the council, that the council would consider the possibility of sort of a monthly newsletter or something like that that would catch people up on the things that are going on, like development in our community.
Well, Jessica also mentioned a weekly email.
Yeah, that would,
Maybe that's the appropriate.
sure.
would work a lot.
Something that gets information to people so they don't feel like they're broadsided.
What is comment on that weekly email, Jessica? Is that an appropriate? I don't even remember what's in there.
So there's a few different email lists in the city. I think the one that goes out weekly is just kind of general information. There's also like a list, for example, that does like sends out every council meeting. I'm not sure who is subscribed or how you get subscribed to the different ones. Since I'm an employee, I get all of them. But I think an email list would be definitely appropriate and something we could use to put out information on capital projects.
Could we recommend to the council that they consider something like that?
If you would like it to be something formal that's done like an every month, something like something that's formally done, then I would recommend that you recommend something to council. If you're just telling me as the staff engineer that when we do a construction project, could we put it out on the listserv, that's something I can just do.
Now, I think that this would be something that maybe many facets of city government could be made more transparent if there was something on a regular basis that just involved announcements of or involved telling the people of Monte Sereno things that are happening for their building or doing construction, or, you know, just general information that people might not pick up in the local papers or local news.
Well, would it possibly be appropriate for us to ask Jessica to maybe get a little bit of information about the various email lists, and then
Surely,
we could talk about what might be appropriate?
surely.
Yeah,
Although
that's what I
I-
was going to say. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no,
but
please go.
like, do we even have a email list? Because like city cannot collect it on their own. Citizens have to subscribe to that email. But if they are not, like I subscribed to the email 8 years ago when we moved here, but I still don't get emails. I don't know why. Maybe they go to spam or something else happens. So I go once in a while on the website and see what is happening, because I've never received any weekly update email, or even the flyer you and Philippa are talking about. We have never received any mailing like that. So out of curiosity, or when we want to check on something, we go on website and get it. But if there is a way to put things regularly on website and maybe ask citizens to join in, and then a monthly update can go on, I think that's more feasible than doing weekly or just trying to collect emails or something like that.
Yeah, it would be best to use some existing email list of citizens that have expressed interest in learning what's going on.
Right. And then we can just put it on website that we are starting this new program. So why don't you opt in? And whenever there is an update, it can automatically go to all the subscriber. Like we subscribe to all these websites and they keep sending us updates. Maybe we can do something similar to our city website too. And that would be a good way to create transparency and get people together and know what is happening in the city.
I think that's the important part, Shalini, that people kind of get together and know what's going on, because it's what what has happened in the past is that groups of people or neighborhoods or individuals feel like they've been broadsided. Wait a minute, you didn't tell me anything about this, or I
Yeah.
never knew about that.
Right, right.
And
No, you're
and
right.
I'm surprised that you don't get something already
Mm-hmm.
next door. Sort of helps, but I think
Right.
Monte Sereno would benefit from
Mm-hmm.
even a monthly
Mm.
update on activities, political activities in our town.
Right, right. Yep, that's the whole gist of it, because I don't think people are getting information other than one street or one particular area where there is something going on. People do get it. And as you said, sometimes people are just blindsided, and like it has happened in front of our home that some a part of street was painted red all of a sudden. We didn't even know and where it came from and why it came from, and then like all the neighbors were like, how did it happen overnight? Those kind of things. It wasn't too much inconvenience to anybody, so I think we just learn to live with it. But those are kind of things which might cause problems some other street or some other place. So it would be better if we can start that monthly update kind of program. And if we need to give a recommendation to our city council for that, I think we can put it on the agenda, whatever the process is.
That seems reasonable, but does it make sense? Jessica, are you already intimate with the different emails that go out, or is
I
that
am
something?
not.
Yeah.
There's a different staff person who does all of our email communications and social media posts. So
Oh.
I'm
Is there
not-
any chance we could have that person attend a meeting so we could better understand the process?
And is that from the council?
the council approved the position. So, I mean, I suppose indirectly, I can't say that I've listened to every council meeting and know exactly what the conversation was had about that position and its roles. But I don't see why we couldn't have her attend the meeting, and I can definitely talk to Steve and get some more information of kind of the scope and the ideas we have. So our next meeting, I can bring back more information to you all.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. And in the meantime, I think that we might talk to the council members just informally and let them know that people on this committee or commission feel that just letting people know what's going on basically in town, it would be a really good idea.
Okay, well, people, I guess commission members can feel free to do that on their own.
Yes, of course.
My preference is I probably won't do anything myself until I better understand the processes that are already in place and how we might better leverage them to communicate information.
Well, I think Jessica's idea to talk to Steve is an excellent one.
Yeah, I agree. Let's start with Steve and first learn what we already have in place and maybe modify it to work better instead of start talking on our level and then confusing more people about what's going on and what kind of transparency are we talking about. It's very much possible that system is in place. It's just not working the way it is supposed to, or maybe not at the optimal level, and we can fix it right there without creating too much trouble everywhere.
I agree. I think that's correct. All right, so Jessica, you'll go ahead and get us some more information. If appropriate, have the social media person give us an update on how things work. If you decide that's not appropriate, I guess you can let us know.
I will definitely follow up on this
Okay.
for next meeting.
All right. Thank you for raising that important concern. now.
So our chat box says that city clerk manages the city's social media posts. So I think we'll have to request her to come to the meeting one
Okay.
time and explain how we can make the system better.
Okay. All right. Well, I trust Jessica will figure out the best way to get us the information we need.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I guess I also need to pay attention to that chat box, which I haven't been doing.
No worries.
All right. So we are on Highway 9. Do we have any more comments on the actual work that's going to be done? And is it time now, Jessica, for us to make a motion that if we want to go ahead and apply for the funds, or do we do that sometime in the future?
If you guys would like to make a motion, now would be the appropriate time.
Especially, this is a use it or lose it, right?
Correct.
Okay. So would somebody like to make a motion that we apply for the TDA funds to start the funding process for the Highway 9 gap closure? Is that pretty accurate what we want to do here, Jessica?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I so move.
Okay. And will someone second that, please?
I'll second.
Okay. Any objections? We probably should have made sure everybody agreed this is the right thing to do. But if there's no objections, then I guess we'll go ahead and go on.
I do need to take a roll call vote, and also
Yeah.
apologies, we need to go back and take a roll call vote for the minutes as well after this.
Oh my goodness. All right.
So should I take the roll call vote for the Highway 9 funding?
Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Alvis,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner A. Saxena,
Yes.
Commissioner S. Saxena,
Yes.
Chair Chapin.
Yes.
All right, passes 4-0 with Pearson absent.
And go ahead and do the minutes before we forget again.
Right, so I had a motion by Commissioner Nelson and a second by Commissioner Alvis. Commissioner Alvis,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner A. Saxena,
Yes.
Commissioner S. Saxena,
Yes.
Chair Chapin,
Yes.
motion passes.
Mhm. Okay, we'll probably, one other comment on Highway 9 is that I attended the Los Gatos Streets Commission meeting this morning and learned that the Highway 9 pedestrian and bicycle connector from Highway 9 to the Los Gatos Creek Trail is in the 35% design phase. And there's going to be a meeting, I think Thursday the 26th, late this month. The details are going to go out next week for people that want to provide feedback or learn more about it. So that will make it easy for people to connect from Highway 9 to the Los Gatos Creek Trail. I just thought I would share that information now while we're talking about Highway 9. And there's also a chance Jessica has even more detail on that she wants to share later. Otherwise, let's go ahead and go on to the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. Do you want to go ahead and do your staff report, Jessica?
Sure. So the Los Gatos Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan was completed in 2016 by the town of Los Gatos with funding from the county health department and also from the city. I was not here at the time. The city of Monte Sereno, to my knowledge, did not have a permanent staff member as the city engineer at the time. So it does not appear that there was much staff input to this plan. However, they did extensive public outreach in the creation of this plan and included projects in Monte Sereno. In 2020, the town completed an update to one chapter, the network recommendations and project prioritization chapter of the plan, which has, it was updated for completed projects and other projects that had merged during the time. City staff wasn't involved with that, but again, also they did extensive public outreach for that plan. The town of Los Gatos has developed a GIS map and also has a pretty robust program for these projects that they call Connect Los Gatos, which I believe I have supplied the link to you before. And Ying Smith from the town has come and talked to us about projects of specific interest to the city of Monte Sereno. The city is totally free to do updates to this plan of our own. It is a document that the city uses for grant applications and to refer to for long range projects. So far, the city has not done that type of action. I attached both the original plan and the updated 2020 Los Gatos projects to the packet this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
If we wanted to make an update, would that create, would we updating the existing document that's been being maintained by Los Gatos, or would we all of a sudden have two separate documents?
It would likely result as an addendum.
Okay.
Or an attachment.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments on that? I've looked through, I've occasionally looked through what the updates they have, because they have very nice updates, Los Gatos does, and you know, they impact my life personally. So I've been very happy with how much they communicate and what they have been sharing with the public. I'm not sure what we should do right now based on this, though. Do you happen to have here the map that shows Monte Sereno, Jessica, and like what they've identified as bike routes through Monte Sereno? That might be interesting.
I don't, but I think and correct me because you may know better than I do, Barry, but it's Highway 9, Daves Avenue, and Winchester Boulevard.
Yes, that's my understanding. Okay, and it's, nope, I'm looking through here and it just has the updates.
May I ask a question here? Does this, Jessica, did you say that anything Monte Sereno does would connect with the Los Gatos program for the bicycle trail?
So this document is considered the city's bicycle and pedestrian master plan. So any update so they are interconnected, which also makes sense because our larger corridors are, you know, bordering Los Gatos. But in general, the plan is Los Gatos centric, right? Because it's much bigger, and also they funded the majority of the project. But we can make updates that are solely in Monte Sereno if we wish to be part of this bicycle pedestrian master plan for the use of the city.
I think that would be a good idea myself, if I understand it correctly, because it's a good idea to utilize any facilities that Los Gatos can provide and hook it on to anything we would want to provide through Monte Sereno, so that the bicycle trail, or whatever you call it, becomes a unified production, so to speak.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Just to make sure you're aware, Philippa, too, that I think there are many times where we're required by law or regulation to have a bicycle plan.
Well, if we are, we might as well hook on to Los Gatos.
Yeah, that's it. That's the reason that we do that.
Yeah.
Because I know that it is a lot of staff time, a lot of consultant time to create something like this. So it would be a huge project for us to do it on our own.
Well, there's no reason that we shouldn't help, you know, it would help us and to utilize Los Gatos's development also.
Mhm.
And what do we have to do to affect this now? We have to approve a plan, or what steps do we need to take here in Monte Sereno to accomplish this?
I don't believe we need to do anything now because we've already done it. Monte Sereno contributed some money to the very small amount of money to the initial creation of the plan, and therefore it became the Los Gatos and Monte Sereno plan. And we have it is officially our plan. And if we wanted to do something unique to Monte Sereno, Jessica said we would add that as an addendum to the plan.
What particularly would we do that would be unique to Monte Sereno?
Well, off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean, it's just like if you wanted to create a bike lane from that road that goes off Dave's Avenue down to Quito. I'm not suggesting we would do that, but
for an example, you're saying.
Yeah. At the most likely scenario is if we needed to do something because Jessica was trying to get some sort of grant or funding for a project we wanted to do on Dave's Avenue. Dave's Avenue seems like the most likely place we would want to make a modification. Do you have any additional comment on that, Jessica?
I think that Dave's Avenue is a great example where there's the sidewalk ends and that whole piece of missing sidewalk is solely in Monte Sereno. That would be a great project to be in the bicycle pedestrian master plan for Monte Sereno. So if some kind of safe routes to school or other type of grant funding came up, we could show that it's in an established plan.
Yes, I think that Dave's Avenue is going to be a very hot potato in the future.
One thing I noticed is that when this first came out, I thought it said Los Gatos and Monte Sereno on the front, but I think Monte Sereno has fallen off. Although that's probably because our involvement has been minimal at best. And do you have any comment on that, Jessica? Do we even need to be concerned about that?
I know, like not on the cover, but on one of like the title pages, it says that it was funded by it listed who it was funded by in the cities in there, and that it is. And I think there is some kind of little blurb that says, even though it refers to Los Gatos, it means Los Gatos and Monte Sereno. I don't know if it was on the cover at one point, though. I can't speak to that.
Okay. Well, the main purpose of this item, I just was to make sure everyone was aware of it and it existed, what kind of information was there, and of course to keep in mind that we may how we would modify it, such as Jessica said, an addendum if we wanted to add something unique to us. So this was mainly just an issue this was brought to our attention just to make sure everybody's aware of it.
And it would include something along Dave's Avenue?
Well, Dave's Avenue is listed as a bike route.
Then we should take some action to be sure that we provide space or for that bike route. If that's particular to Monte Sereno, we should do that.
Well, the approach we have taken in the past is if there's some sort of work on the street or we're doing some sort of infrastructure project anyways, then we look at it from a complete streets perspective and make sure that everything is being done to make it optimal, or at least as best as possible for bicycles and pedestrians. But I don't think it's calling for us to, proactively go make changes to streets that don't currently have any need for change, necessarily create any new projects.
Jessica, what do you feel our next step would be?
I guess it's just the will of the commission. If you all feel that we should go searching for projects to put into an addendum to this document, you could definitely vote on that, and we could bring that to council for either staff to do or to provide funding for a consultant to do. You could have a policy where if, like, say, example for the traffic mitigation policy, if this is an example, totally an example, but say Vineland voted on having a sidewalk, but we don't have money to build a sidewalk. That's something that could go into the bike and pedestrian master plan. So if funding arises, we could apply for a type of grant. Or so it's the will of the commission. I don't really have a recommendation for updating or not updating this plan.
Well, now is the time to take action, however. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no, not necessarily. This was just, as Barry said, an item put up here to bring to the attention of you all that basically that this plan exists.
So Dave's Avenue, for example, is a popular bicycle thoroughfare, but generally speaking, there's no issues. So, it doesn't seem to me that there's any need for us to say we need to make any changes just because it's identified as a bicycle route. Unless it comes to our attention somehow that there's some sort of safety issue or some improvement that needs to be made.
I would think that would be kind of evident on Dave's Avenue, that there does need to be some markings or something for bicycles, if that is an area where many bikers ride on the trails.
Well, there's not really a trail. There's a wide shoulder on Dave's Avenue, generally speaking. And from my personal perspective, I think cyclists generally feel safe biking on that road right now.
I'm not a cyclist, so I'd have to take your word for it.
So I don't know if any other commissioners have comments, but I don't see this as any sort of call to action. I see it as just make sure everyone is aware of it. It's a tool we have at our disposal. It's something that we have to get certain types of funding.
I agree. And in future, if we do come across something which we want to add, do we have the opportunity, or this is like, if we don't add it now, we would not get to do it later?
Well, what I see is they have, spreadsheets of active projects that are addendums, and those I think are always being updated. And it would probably Jessica could work with Los Gatos staff to get something included there as a starting point, if appropriate.
Right. But if we add something, city will have to come up with its own money to add to the project so it can be done, right? Like we have to get our own funding raised from state or whatever the proper authorities are. If suppose, like she gave an example that one street, we need a sidewalk, but we don't have money. So if something like that comes up in the future, in 6 months, some resident come in and start talking about it, we would have the opportunity. It's only that we will have to figure out how we are going to fund it, right?
Yes, we would have to fund it. It's just that if it needed to be on the bicycle plan for our community, in order to apply for a grant, this is how we would get it on the bicycle plan, so that Jessica could apply for the grant.
Great. So at least we know that there is something like this there, and we can always see if we can accommodate if a new requests come, if we can accommodate in this
Mhm.
plan and get it done more smoothly.
Mhm. Other comments or questions on this?
Not for me.
Mhm. Okay. Well, thank you very much for going to all that work, Jessica. I really appreciate it. And I would encourage everybody to look at the master plan update and look at the Connect Los Gatos website, just because there's a lot of stuff going on that impacts us. And so it would really be good for you to be aware of that. But with that, let's go ahead and move on to committee and commission reports. I'm trying to call up. I have a report, a very minor report. First of all, there was the VTA Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee was canceled at the last minute, so nothing happened there. And I attended this morning the Los Gatos Streets and Transportation Commission, and I learned the most important things were I learned about the Highway 9 Los Gatos Creek Trail Connector, which I talked about a little bit earlier. And that commission has a short-term priority of doing a pedestrian assessment of downtown. So they're going to divide up and walk through downtown and try to better understand any, how pedestrians flow through town, and specifically look at barriers there might be to people in a wheelchair. And they're also going to look at where there's wheelchair accessible van parking in town and make sure that that is sufficient. So that's just the current hot topic short-term priority for the Los Gatos Streets and Transportation Committee. I just wanted to share that with everybody. And that's all I have to report.
And I would like to thank you so much for getting up so early in the morning and attending those meetings and giving us update. I really appreciate it. Otherwise, I don't think we'll get to know what's happening there.
Ditto, thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments they would like to make as a commissioner or anything else that are okay? Let's go ahead and go on to the city engineers report.
Just a brief report, since we have already we talked last month. The Winchester project still on schedule to start up at the end of the month and go on through the summer. There's construction going on right now for utilities, but the roadway and bicycle project is to begin at the end of the month. And we are starting our budget for fiscal year 21-22. Capital projects include funding the rest of that Winchester project from July onwards. The Highway 9 project that we had walkway project that we talked about earlier this evening, and then also improvements in the La Rinconada neighborhood. The pavement is very bad. They have the lowest PCI in the whole city. So addressing La Rinconada, Natalie, Clara, and Zena streets. And that is all I have to report this evening.
All right, future agenda items. Now, Philippa brought up a specific concern. I forget which, that was Winchester and Vinland, Philippa?
Yeah, Vineland. The curbing at the corners of Winchester and Vineland, which evidently will be in the bicycle trail. And there's no, the curbing is a regular step down curving. So bicyclists have to go make a big detour into Vineland or out into Winchester. And they are recommending or wanting the curbs at Vineland on the west side of Vineland and Winchester there. They want, would like to see a slope at some point so that bicycles as well as wheelchairs or pedestrians can access the walking trail or walking path across the street without having to step down on the curb.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the suggestion I would have is maybe if any commissioners have time, and I'll make time to go look at the situation, make sure we understand it so we can talk intelligently about it. And then Jessica, would you be willing to look at the plan that Los Gatos is putting in place to see if those are going to be impacted anyways? And maybe those improvements are already in the plan. You probably don't have any idea off the top of your head, do you?
Well, I'm actually a bit confused on exactly what the issue is, because there are definitely curb cuts in the sidewalk are we talking about crossing Winchester or
No.
crossing Vineland?
Crossing Vineland.
So I will say for this project that all of the corners are being redone to be ADA compliant to the current standards. So it is likely that the issue you are referring to for pedestrian use and wheelchair type use should be alleviated. I'm not really sure if that affects bicycle usage at all, unless I'm not understanding the issue.
Bicycles shouldn't be using the sidewalk there, especially.
That's what I was gonna say, bicycles should be in the bike lane. That's part of why Winchester's being redone.
I see, but there is a problem with wheelchairs or people, basically are who are handicapped in any way.
But Jessica, you said that all the corners are going to be ADA compliant after the project is done, correct?
Correct.
Right, so then that shouldn't be an issue.
Maybe that corner is all, involved. I've just heard some comments from the residents in that area. So we could just check to be sure that there is I don't know what the official word is, a curb cut or something, so that people in a wheelchair could cross Vineland.
Jessica, is that, I know that the Winchester project, there's a portion that's being done now, and then there's a portion that's going a little bit farther out. Are those curbs intended to be done in this current portion or the one that's farther down the road? Do you know?
They are to be done in this current portion, and that work is to be done first before the roadway.
Okay, and that intersection, those curbs haven't been done yet. I don't think there's been any work there yet.
No, not to my knowledge.
Yeah, okay.
So, Felipa, are you satisfied that we believe the Winchester Street improvements that are going to start this summer are going to make sure all those corners are ADA compliant, and so they should be in very good shape.
Yes, could
after
someone,
this.
Jessica, I don't know if you're the one to check on that, but I would like to be sure that particular corner is involved.
Absolutely. I can check on the project plans and email a verification to the whole commission on that. Yes.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
If there is a website, I can't give you the address right now, Felipa. Los Gatos has a website dedicated to this project. I would encourage you to go take a look at it if you have particular concerns about intersection with Winchester, and you can learn more about it.
It just was that one corner.
Right, but I think that Barry, I think that Jessica had those in our last. That was part of our last meeting. I think it was. Didn't we have access? So if Felipa, if you look at our agenda from last month, there are links to all that information. So I'm pretty sure that you could probably find it there.
But nevertheless, Jessica will confirm that for us.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Mhm. Okay. Any other new agenda or future agenda items that we should talk about? Anybody have anything they'd like to put on the agenda? In that case, if nobody objects, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Everybody good with that?
Is our next meeting is it June?
Excellent question.
The next regularly scheduled meeting is, yes, the second Thursday in June.
Okay.
And I'm not aware of anything that we need to, any reason we need to get together before then. But Jessica will reach out to us if we decide we need to. All right. Well, thank you very much. It's 8:23 and I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you
Thank
very
you. Take
Thank
care,
you all.
everyone.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Good night.